Oligarchs, billionaires, and hypocrites. Well, today I'm going to talk to you about something that affects every single one of us, and that's the jealousy economy. I want to talk to you about how you are being manipulated into believing an idea that isn't true. So, if you're a millennial or a Gen Z person, I hope you'll listen to this because we are going to unpack the truth behind oligarchs, billionaires, and hypocrites on today's Steve Beeman Show. So when a politician comes out and gives a speech and they argue about the billionaires and the millionaires and the oligarchs running the country, and then they get on their own private jet and fly back to their one of many homes, well, something's wrong. Somebody in that equation isn't telling you the truth. Well, I'm here to tell you today that it's the hypocrites that are telling you to be angry and to be jealous. And they're preaching an ideology of the jealousy economy, which won't work now, never has worked in the past, and will not work in the future. So we're going to explode the myth of the jealousy economy. I want to talk about where it's come from. This idea of a jealousy economy has been around for centuries. It was most notably put into force when we looked at the Soviet Union. In the revolution of 1917, what was the argument? They have it, you don't. Hate them, feel good about yourself. Because they had it and you didn't, you were supposed to hate them. Now, in the Soviet Union system, it was a little different, and I grant you that. They had a kingdom in which Tsar Nicholas did create a non-free economy. So it's a little more easy to understand why jealousy happened. But if we roll that clock forward, and we've seen that kind of logic play out in the Soviet Union, Venezuela, North Korea, Cuba, England in the 70s, and to some extent even here in the United States. How has it worked? It hasn't. It's never worked and it never will, because when you get down to the policies of the jealousy economy, they don't work. The jealousy economy works for the hypocrites. It works for those people who are out to gin up your anger and your discontentment just to make you mad, just so you send them money so they become enriched at your expense. I want to explode all this today, and I want to talk to you about where it is, because this jealousy economy in today's world is not a political philosophy. It's a business model. And it's a very successful one. And in fact, if I were as good at it as they would, I would be making a ton of money off this stuff. What they're doing is selling political rage to you in the cover of economic policy. But it's just the rage they're selling. They're just trying to make you mad, because the more mad you are, the more money you'll send them. But going back to the Soviet thing, I want to study that with you for a minute, because let's talk about what a real oligarch is. You hear Bernie and AOC out talking about, oh, it's the oligarchy of the United States. Bull. If you're if you're 20 years old or 18 years old to 30, and you believe that, you need to open your mind and understand truth. This country is nowhere near run by an oligarchy. It's a stupid word here, but let me explain to you where it comes from and why it's a true concept in the world. So the Soviet Union, and you're too young to remember the Soviet Union, but in 1990 it collapsed. The utopia of the Soviet system finally couldn't support itself anymore, and it collapsed. Coming out of that, the new Russian government, which was the heart of the Soviet Union, the Russian government said, under Boris Yeltsin, we own all these companies, because the government owned everything. How do we get these companies out of the government? How do we try to get this free market thing going that the West has that defeated us? Well, because they didn't have a democratically built capital market system, and for those of you who like to say, oh, the New York Stock Exchange, this is the value of the New York Stock Exchange. you can take that company and distribute ownership publicly. You can democratize ownership of it. Well, they didn't have that. So instead of going to a capital exchange and taking these companies public and therefore sharing ownership among the people, what they did is what they had always done. They went to their political cronies and said, you can own that company, you can own that company, and you can own that company. So they gave away ownership of these formerly government-owned enterprises to their cronies, thus became the Russian oligarchs. They are people who never earned it. They were political hacks who were given monetary control of these companies in return for political favors. You and I would agree that's unhealthy. Nobody wants that kind of favoritism. Nobody wants that kind of special treatment. It's wrong. So the oligarchy that exists in Russia today is wrong. But do we have an oligarchy here? Not even close. The people who are accused of being oligarchs, they're not in government. They don't make the laws. You can say they have undue political influence, but I'm going to talk to you about who has the real political influence in a minute. It's not Elon Musk. The real political influence comes out of the politicians themselves, and I want to explain that. But you look at this and you can say, if the oligarchy is truly somebody in Russia who was given, they didn't earn, they were given this company. In this country, was he given his company? Or did he invent really cool things that made him a lot of money? Did Jeff Bezos, was he given Amazon? Or did he come up with a really cool idea that he monetized? Now, let me go down the thought process that's taking place right now. Yeah, but Elon's worth $250 billion. So what? His $250 billion of paper wealth has made others billionaires. We talked about the example of Amazon. Jeff Bezos may be worth $130 billion, but Amazon's worth $1.3 trillion. That other $900 billion or $1 trillion of wealth is distributed to you. It's owned in mutual funds, 401ks, retirement plans. The same with Elon's wealth. That Tesla stock is owned by the people. It's democratically distributed through our capital market system. We are not even close to an oligarchy. It's one of those phrases they throw out that just makes me sick because it's not a real thing. If you go back to the 1920s, the wealthiest family in the country was the Kennedys. Joe Kennedy was the wealthiest man in America. Roll the clock forward 100 years, the Kennedy family's not that wealthy anymore. They don't really have that much. We live in a fluid society. When Warren Buffett quits and he dies, his money's being distributed. It's not staying with him. He's dead. It'll be distributed. And roll the clock forward a few generations, his family will be normalized. The point being, we don't have an oligarchy in this country. What we have are rich people who've earned it through the development and the patent of a technology, generally. Yeah, there's some family inheritances that go on, but even that, I'll talk about that in a minute, because that doesn't create an oligarchy. We're not even close. So the whole idea that it's the oligarchs who are, keeping you down, the only reason that they go out, and specifically Bernie Sanders and AOC, the reason they say that to you is because they're enriching themselves through your anger. They're not out to build you up. They're not out to lift you up and give you a way to enrich yourself. They're exploiting you to make themselves rich. Specific. Take a guess in 2020 how much Bernie Sanders brought in. $180 million. That's how much was donated to him by small people, small investors. What have they gotten in return? Nothing. Had that $180 million been invested in Tesla or Amazon, it would have tripled. So who's out to build wealth and who's out to exploit wealth? Bernie Sanders go after the millionaires and billionaires. He's a multimillionaire. He has 3 homes. I don't begrudge that. Fine, great. Because by having that money and by having those homes, he's moving money through the economy to build wealth for others. But he would have you believe that he's one of you. He just wants to get rid of the billionaires and he wants to tax the billionaires their fair share and he wants to tax the big bad corporations. AOC, my God, have you looked at her merchandise sales? She's making more money off merch sales than anybody in the podcast world. She is exploiting your anger to make money for herself. The truth of the matter is, there are no oligarchs here. Elon Musk does not have legislative control. We talked about this in a prior podcast. He went in through Doge, and you know what he did? This is why everybody hates him in government. He went in and he said, look, I'm just here to find out if there's fraud and abuse. And it's all over the place. What Doge is finding is that 10, 15, 20% of the money you send to Washington is stolen by the bureaucracies and the politicians themselves. That's why they hate him. He pulled the cover off their criminal enterprise. If we acted in private business like they act in Washington, we'd be in jail. Again, they talk about this insider trading thing. Do you know it's legal for members of Congress to inside trade? It's not for you and it's not for me, but it is for them. How do you think Nancy Pelosi made all her money? These people are exploiting you by lying to you directly. Another lie that they're saying. Bernie and AOC are out on these speeches about the oligarchs run the country, the oligarchs rule the world. Malarkey. Elon's cutting Social Security. Do you know not one dime in benefits has been cut in Social Security? Not one. And not one Social Security check has been delayed. What he's cutting is the fat. He's cutting the redundant bureaucracy that just exists to be a jobs program. So they hate Elon because he's proved that it's fraud. They're enriching themselves, but they're keeping you believing that they're on your side. And they do it because it's the way they make money. They disenfranchise you from being your own success because God forbid you do it on your own. They need you to be a ward of the state. They need you to need the government because that's their business. Again, think about it. $180 million to Bernie Sanders, and what'd you get for it? $180 million to Elon Musk, and you send people to Mars. Where's the value proposition? Now, what they'll tell you is the rich people don't pay their fair share, and we're going after the billionaires. Okay, throw the oligarchs out. Maybe that's not true. Maybe we don't really have oligarchs. Let's go after the billionaires. Let's take the money from them. They're the billionaire class. Okay, let me give you facts because I just can't see this country surviving if you don't know the truth. And they're ginning you up in your anger and your frustration, not at the people who you should be angry at, and that's government, but they're ginning you up with anger against yourselves, your own citizens. That guy's got it. I don't. Therefore, I don't like him. So let's look at the reality of some of the income distribution, okay? The top 1% in this country, if you earn $664,000, you're in the top 1%. That's a fair income. You're doing pretty well. Most of us would say, good, you're doing well. I want to be in that group. Now, that's because I grew up in a world where you tried to get yourself better instead of a world saying, oh, I'm a victim. I'm just jealous. That guy has it. I want to take it from him. But let's look at what we take already. That top 1% person earns 22% of the adjusted gross income of the United States. So the top 1% earns 20%. But they pay 40% of the taxes. So they're taking 20% income, but paying 40% of the taxes already. Is that a fair share? They're paying double what they're taking. I mean, you go down the list, the top 5%, you make 261,000 in this country, you're in the top 5%. Okay, and that top 5%, you're now earning 38% of the gross income and paying 60% of the taxes. The top 50%, and let me tell you, if you make more than 50,000 a year, you're in this group. You're the top 50% of wage earners. You're making 88% of the national income. You know what you're paying? 97.6% of all federal taxes. We already have an incredibly progressive tax code. Incredibly progressive. So you say, well, okay, we're not oligarchs. Okay, that's a lie. We won't use that anymore. We can't really say tax income anymore because we're kind of already doing that. Well, the rich, wealthy people. Okay. Let's take a look at wealthy people. Let's take a look. If you said, I'm going to take the, and I have statistics on this, I find it fascinating. If you say, I'm going to take the combined net worth of the top 25 people in the United States, Elon's on the top of that list. Number 25 is Lucas Walton of the Walmart family. If you take all of their money, you liquidate them, it's $2.5 trillion. That covers 1 year of our deficit. Or we can distribute to you $7,000. Now, like a lot of you, I see lots of videos, and sometimes I marvel at the stupidity of the national media and the politicians, because I've seen on national media a person say, well, Elon has $360 million and there's 360 million of us. So if he gives each of us $1 million, we'd all be even. Well, if you're not totally stupid, you see $360 million divided by 360 million people is $1 each. But you actually see that on national media. It shows you the financial ignorance of what's going on in this country. Financial literacy isn't taught in schools. It's not really taught anywhere. And it's so that that is the intent, to keep you down. They don't want you to know what causes inflation. They don't want you to know who really pays taxes. They don't want you to know the truth because you'll revolt against them. But let's expand this out. Let's say, okay, the top 25, that's just not enough. Let's go down to the top 80. So let's take the top 80, 100 wealthiest people in the country and liquidate them. We're going to take the jealousy economy to the Soviet communist revolution, and we're going to liquidate these people and take their money. Okay, now you have a little more. The top 100-ish, I think top 79 is the actual number, but they have $7.5 trillion. Wow, that's a lot of money. That's $21,000 each. So if you want to go out and take this economy of the jealousy sort to the natural conclusion and just take their money, you get $21,000. The problem, though, that you've just created is you've wiped out the most productive people in the economy. Not all of them. Certainly some of them through inheritance, and there's some other who didn't get there by anything but luck. But for the most part, those people with that kind of success earn it because they're a little bit smarter than we are. They're a little bit harder working than we are. They're a little bit luckier. Maybe they called it right. But for the most part, they work really hard. And it used to be that we wanted to be one of them. Our goal was to be better than ourselves. Our goal was to be better than the prior generation. Somehow, we've let these politicians BS you into believing that you can't get ahead because Elon Musk has $230 billion. Nothing could be farther from the truth. Look at two scenarios. Elon Musk has $230 billion, or you take it from Elon and you give it to the government. Okay. When Elon has $230 billion, what's he doing with that money? Now, right now, a lot of that's in paper wealth through the stocks, but let's say he liquidates that. He just has $230 billion in cash. What would he do with it? He'd put some in banks to earn interest. Well, what happens to that money? Well, it gets loaned out to you to buy a house, to buy a car. So there's money in the capital system for you to do what you want to do, for you to borrow money for a business. He also then would buy things. 230 billion buys a lot of houses, a lot of boats, a lot of motorcycles. What does that do? Creates employment because he's a customer. We had a situation, this goes back many, many years ago, where the government in all of its wisdom said, we are going to tax yachts. We don't like people. If they have money to spend on a yacht, we'll just tax them because they have all the money. They have it. We don't. We're jealous of it. So we're going to tax them. So they did. And what happened in the next year or two? The people making yachts were out of work. The government did fine. The politician who told you to be jealous did fine. But how did the worker do? Not so well. So Elon has this cash. He's put some in the bank. He's spending some of it. He invests some of it, but he invests it in businesses he thinks are going to go up in value because it's in his interest to do that. What does the government invest money in? Go back to the oligarchs. The government gives money to its friends. And if you look at the history of the government investing money in businesses that it wants to grow, and Solyndra being the poster child for that, it doesn't work very well. So who's better capital allocator, Elon Musk or the government? And you can say, well, I don't like Elon having that much money. He should help solve poverty with it. How do you solve poverty? Do you steal his money and just redistribute $21,000 to each of us? Or do you use his money to invest in companies that can build employment and give people money for homes? The jealousy economy simply says, you, rich guy, are keeping me down. And nothing could be further from the truth. No one in this country is held down because there are billionaires. Their money can be used to lift you up. Unlike the government, who will keep you mired in institutional poverty if they can, the free market says you can use my money to build yourself up. How many people start companies and go to wealthy people to start the company? The whole world of angel investing is filled with successful people who are investing in startup ventures. There's risk. They may lose their money, but they also may win, in which case you build employment, you build cash flow, you build velocity of money through the system, and you build wealth. Bernie Sanders has never done that. I'm reminded often of George McGovern. He ran for president in 1972, again, before most of you were born. After he failed in that run for president, he opened a bed and breakfast. It was after a few years of that it went out of business, and he made the comment, I only wish I knew when I was in Congress what I know now. These people in Congress have never built anything except wealth for themselves. They are exploiting you and manipulating your emotions to make you believe that you're victimized by a class of economics, when in fact the opposite is true. The only exploitation here is by them for their benefit. They're robbing you blind and you're clapping on the way to see the money go. It's not truth and it's not right. The billionaire class in this country, let's start again with the oligarchs. We're not in Russia, so we don't have oligarchs here. The billionaires, they're already paying most of the taxes and they create opportunity for you. They don't hoard their money like some, oh my gosh, I'm putting it in a mattress. They put their money out through the economy efficiently instead of taking it to government where it's been proven 20% is fraud. Now, there is one statistic that really bothers me, and I want to show you I'm not politically biased on this. I get upset when I see statistics that are uncomfortable or even dangerous. And the one that I see is if you look at pure wealth, not income, wealth, the assets. The top 1% here own about 32% of the nation's wealth. Now, I don't like that. I don't like the fact that it's so tilted there. And that's where you are seeing the top, percent become wealthy at, it's not at the expense of, but it's in transition of the bottom. And that started, I talked about it in my talk about tariffs and trade, because it started to go that way big in 1980. It wasn't that Reagan cut taxes to the rich people and so their wealth exploded. No, what happened was we put in trade, which globalized business. That globalized business catapulted the stock market. That's what's created the wealth. The stock market in those days by the S&P or the Dow was like 1,000. Today it's 39,000. Think about the multiplier effect on wealth. So those who had free money in their 401ks and in their retirement plans and individually in the markets made a killing. That's where that disparity has come from. But what caused that? It wasn't tax policy. It wasn't, we cut taxes from 70% to 28%. No, that grew the economy. What caused the problem, my friends, is that we've taken the freedom in the United States economy systematically down. Do you know today we rank, I think the number is 26th in a measurement of economic freedom around the world. 26th. Back when I grew up, we were in the top 5. Even as early as the 2000s, we were in the top 10. Now we're 26th. That is what's keeping you down. That is what's creating you to feel like there's no opportunity. That is what's saying, I can't get a job. That lack of economic freedom is what's hurting you. It's not the billionaires. The billionaires, the largest check ever written to the government as a tax, the largest ever was Elon Musk. He wrote a $12 billion tax payment to the government. But as always, what does that money do? It just gets wasted. It's not productively used. So we're already taxing these people to no end. But it's that economic freedom that if you're a millennial or a Gen Z and you're feeling like, I've got to listen to one of these people, Bernie and AOC give me a plausible reason to feel victimized. The rich people are getting all the money. But you have to understand why. All that money is aggregating because of government policy. Government regulation slows business down. Government taxation slows business down. When other countries compete and say we have less regulation and less taxes, business goes over there. Jobs go over there. So the solution to what you feel as this uncomfortableness isn't the jealousy economy to say, because they have it, I don't. It's to say, I can't get ahead because government is putting a suppressor on the economy. That's exactly what's happening. But again, these people make a ton of money, tons of money, by getting you angry about the millionaires and billionaires. They're an easy group to go after. They have it, you don't. Therefore, you're jealous and they've got it, I don't, I'm a victim. No, you're not. Elon having $200 billion doesn't hurt you, affect you, or anything else. And if it does anything, it helps you. If you don't like him, don't buy his car. But don't let your jealousy become a poison that destroys a country. Because right now, what they're promoting and their positioning is destructive. In the Soviet Union, the top 5% had a lot of money. The bottom 95 lived like dirt. In our country, it's not like that. Certainly, if you want to break it down by percentages, I'd say the top 70% here live pretty well. Now, it used to be the top 90%. I do agree that that's coming down. I do. But I would argue it's coming down because these politicians, they're exploiting people to say the problem is the oligarchs, the billionaires, and the millionaires. Okay, we don't have oligarchs. That's like calling people Nazi. You don't even know your history. You don't know what the word means. There are no oligarchs here. Nobody in this country has gotten a business because a politician said, "You're my friend, I'm giving you this business." In addition, we still live in a democratic republic. We still have a say in this. If you hate Donald Trump, and there are a lot of you that do, fine. But 65 million or so people don't, and they voted for him. Just like in 2020, to those who love Donald Trump, 68 million people voted for Biden. We still have a say in this. You vote in your local elections. You vote for your local congressperson. So don't say you're victimized and shut out of the system. I would argue that you're exploited and you're manipulated into who you vote for. If you think you're getting truth out of ABC, NBC, CBS, MSNBC, or even Fox News, if you think you're getting truth out of these people, naive is an understatement. They have writers who are writing scripts for them with a very specific alignment. They are ginning up their bases, regardless if it's left, right, or otherwise. They are ginning up their bases so they get a lot of viewers and therefore a lot of advertisers. What do you think Bernie and AOC are doing? They're going out ginning up anger. It's the billionaires. No, it's not. It's the politicians. They're the problem. It's that ranking of the U.S. as the 26th freest economy. That's what's making you feel like you do. That's what's creating a system that you feel like you can't do better than your parents. When you look at the net taxation of the country, how it's grown, government's always taken about 20% of the U.S. economy. Today, I think in total taxes, state, local, federal, excise taxes, all the stuff, all the taxes, I think it's closer to 38%. That's why you feel stagnant, because almost half the money that's created in this country gets squandered through the government. And yes, they do pay for their political favorites. I beg you to look critically at this and understand who's exploiting your goodwill to just make you angry and tell you that there's an easy way out here. It's their fault. It's not their fault. It's the person telling the story's fault. Elizabeth Warren to come out and say, well, that person didn't build it. Well, she's never built a thing in her life. How dare she? And by doing that, what is she doing? Is she lifting you up saying, you too can build it? Let's look at that person who built that wonderful company. You can do it too. Let's talk about ways in which you do it. Instead of that, she says, no, you're a victim. You be jealous of that guy. Who's that serving? Her. She's getting your donations. She's getting her perks in Congress. She's getting her exemption from insider trading rules. It's the politicians getting rich at your expense. I know that some of you are going to say that's just not true because we don't want it to be true. We want to believe in political leadership. We want to believe in leadership that's honest, that has our interest at heart. I can tell you they don't. And this is true on the Republican and the Democratic side. I see an awful lot of Republicans who out-gin up their base the same way. They don't use false economic arguments. They use false social arguments. So they're exploiting you to get your money to keep them in power and to keep them wealthy. But is it helping you? Is it making you better? Is it lifting you up? Clearly not. What they're doing is restricting the engine of growth that had made it possible in the past years for people to get ahead. I mean, we've talked about there are no oligarchs. We've talked about the payments these people make and the value of the billionaires in this class. That doesn't solve a problem. The only problem we have out of this is you. And that's that you grow something that builds wealth for everybody. The jealousy economy has never worked and will never work, because what happens is the political class exploits it and they make you do the dirty work, and then they live high on the hog. That's not fair. It's not right. It's wrong. But how do they exploit you? Because I'm telling you, it happens every single day. They sell speeches that just sell rage. They're the problem. You're not the problem. They're the problem. The problem is the government. And it's those people who tell you you can't succeed. There's an old story about a bucket of crabs. And at the time, at the bottom of the bucket, you put a bunch of crabs. One of them will try to crawl out of the bucket. But it never fails that as one of them gets close to the top, the others will pull him back down. They don't want the one crab to succeed. Now, they're not thinking that way, obviously. They're looking, saying, well, wait, I can get up there. And they pull him down. But it's the same principle. When you try to get lifted up to crawl out of that bucket, down at the bottom of the politicians, left, right, everywhere else, the politicians say, no, you can't do that. You can't get out of that bucket. I don't believe that. I believe in you. We did a podcast recently on AI in the coming 10-10-10 economy. I said there, and I say again, I believe that you are the solution. Extreme freedom, utilizing the talents and creativity and ideas of the everyday person are what are going to get us out of this mess. It's not looking to some government hack to say, well, I hate that person because I'm jealous of them. Can you take their money and then give it back to me? Well, you never get it, first of all, because it goes to them and gets soaked up. If you do get it, it's watered down immeasurably. How about going to the rich guys saying, let's support more of them and let's have them give money to venture capital, which they do. Let's have them give money to angel investing, which they do. Let's have them put money in banks and let mortgages happen and let that kind of money transfer the economy. It works. England in the 1970s started to go down a path of the jealousy economy. Socialism, they called it. It's just jealousy. And the idea is that, well, we're wealthy as a country and we shouldn't have disparities in income like this. So they started to tax industry and tax people and regulate huge. By the mid-70s, they had brownouts throughout the country. They couldn't produce enough electricity for their people. It didn't work. It doesn't work. Freedom works. Liberty works. It creates the motivations and the incentives in you to do the right thing. Now, there are risks with it. I get it. My Lord, when you know my story, I've suffered huge losses. I've had big wins, but I've had big losses too, and that goes with the game. But I wouldn't begin to tell you that, well, you can't do it because, the rich people have all the money. Go meet a rich person and have them fund your business. You're not going to meet a poor person who funds your business, I'll tell you that. And don't believe it. Don't believe it when the Elizabeth Warrens, the AOC, you want to go do shop at AOC.com? Oh my gosh, she's making a fortune off of you. Her dress at the Met, the tax the rich dress, I forget what she paid for that. It was thousands. Who paid for that? You did. She went out and gave a speech. You all got mad and said, it's the oligarchs, the billionaires, and the millionaires. I'm giving you money. And so she spends it. She got a very expensive dress, which she can now use to sell more merchandise. You're being suckered. And they're showing you it. Again, Bernie Sanders, $3 million, 3 houses. He doesn't want to tax himself. He wants to tax the other guy. Funny how that works. AOC, she's out building a brand so she can make money. She's an influencer. I don't blame her. I just don't like it when she blames others who've succeeded at it. Joe Rogan is very successful at podcasting. He makes a whole lot more money than I do. I don't make anything off this. Joe makes a ton. Am I jealous of him? Not in the least. I'm happy for him. Because he succeeds doesn't mean I can't. We don't live in a zero-sum economy, which these people on the left like you to believe we do. They have it, therefore you don't. That's not true. The way money works is additive. Again, the stock market, it's not zero-sum. If I buy a stock at 10 and then I sell it to you at 12, I made $2. But that doesn't mean you're going to lose $2. If it goes to 14, you now made $2. The next guy, it creeps up. There is additive value to the movement of money through the economy. So because someone else has it, it doesn't mean you don't. That's pure jealousy. Now, again, the world's changed. When I was a kid, you were taught not to be jealous. You were taught to be grateful for what you had and then look with optimism on your ability to solve the problems that created the situation you're in. You didn't blame the other guy. I wasn't jealous of someone else because they got A's. I wanted to, well, okay, maybe I didn't want to get A's so bad. But the point being, I wasn't jealous of it. I realized I had to work harder to get it. We need to get back to that in this country, and we need to get back to an economy that rewards behavior, doesn't make enemies of everybody. And I want to touch on this idea because I really believe that we need to restructure how we even think of it. When you go out and you look at the rich people and you look at these billionaires, so take a look, and I wrote some of these down because I just think it's fascinating. If you go out and you say, well, where are the millionaires and billionaires? Go look on the left. You've got George Soros, Jeff Bezos. You got your share of billionaires over here. Look on the right. You got Ken Griffin. You got Donald Trump. You got billionaires over here too. Elon Musk is interesting, by the way. He used to be over here and now he's over here. But I would suggest to you that where you and I need to be isn't left or right on a spectrum. It's a circle. Up here is liberty, individual freedom. Down here is socialism, tyranny. How you get there could be on the left or the right. The right, you go down the National Socialist path of fascism. The left, you go down it in the communism. But either way, you come down to the same point, tyranny. Up here, you have liberty and freedom. That's where I hope you'll be. I hope you'll value liberty and freedom and say, with that freedom, I can do for myself. I don't need government to do it because I'm telling you, once you go down the path of government, you'll never get out. Look at the experiment of social welfare. When the Great Society came out, there was an immediate statistical impact on a reduction in poverty. Now, how you define poverty is, kind of weird, but there was a reduction in it. But then it stabilized. It stagnated. I think it went from 28% to 20%, and at 20%, it's just stayed forevermore. But look at the poor people in the West compared to the poor people in these utopian countries that rely on the jealousy economy. Our poor people had cell phones, televisions, all this stuff. You think the poor people in Venezuela have what the rich people in Venezuela don't have what our poor people have? Free markets, freedom of the individual, that created wealth like never before in history. This jealousy economy that they're exploiting you on through social media, through these live speeches, these tax the rich merchandise sales, all of this is just there to exploit you. And it works. As I said, Bernie raised $180 million. Now you could say, well, he used that for good purposes. What created out of it? If you had that money, wouldn't you rather have that money in Elon Musk? You think I hear people all the time tell me that the Blackstone Group is the devil. So they give money to politicians to fight against the Blackstone Group. Okay, how would you be better off? Giving that money to the politician or just buying a share of Blackstone stock? Again, that 180 million you gave Bernie did nothing for you. It maybe mollified your anger a little bit, but it didn't create anything for you. That same money put in Tesla stock would have made you a fortune. If you're out there today and you're buying into this oligarchs and billionaires and complaints of the AOC and Bernie Sanders, and you're going to their speeches and you're writing checks, giving them money, I beg you, be rational. Go put that money into a company. Put it somewhere where it will create a job, where it will create wealth, instead of just down a politician's pocket who use it for themselves. And you could say, well, if Bernie raised 180 million, he's not worth that. Certainly he did other things with the money. Sure. Look at Kamala Harris. She squandered $1 billion or more of donor money on media, travel and entertainment, all the stuff that creates nothing. So when you're giving money to Bernie and AOC or Elizabeth Warren or any on the right, I mean, you give money to anybody, it just goes away. They use it for media. They use it for travel and transportation, first class or private jets. But they need private jets. They're important. Okay, well, I don't buy it. My point is, when you give money to them, it's just thrown away. Please put your money into things that make it grow for you. Believe that you can get out of the economic despair that you might be in, that you're not held down by the millionaires and billionaires. You are held down by the very people who are using you to gin up your anger. Those are the people that you need to watch out for. Those are the people who don't have your interest in heart. I mean, the cost of this envy and jealousy economy is enormous. Go look at England in the 70s. Study it. Take a look at it. Look what jealousy has done in economies around the world since time began. The idea that because you have it, I can't, is never right. Now, if you want to say, well, it's kind of true, I'm going to tell you that disparity in income that we see, the ownership of the top 1% of 20% of the assets and all that, and I agree that's wrong. But the solution to it is not to say, we're just going to take it from them. The solution to it is to take the United States from 26th or 7th on the freedom scale and raise it up again to the top 5. That will level the market. That will level people's access to the market. That will level that whole thing. That's the solution. Now, if you have a different solution, as I don't have all the answers, I think, I have my opinions of what's right based on a lot of history and a lot of experience. But if you think there's a better solution, let me know. I'd be curious to see it. I welcome the dialogue. It's people of good mind and good heart that get together and have non-judgmental talks who are trying to come up with solutions instead of just state the problem. I believe the solution is you. I believe that you're capable. I believe that you're powerful. I believe that your ideas can change the world. I just want you to objectively and critically look at those people exploiting you. I welcome you to critically look at this message of mine. Determine if it's truth or if it's just lies. Determine where my motives are. Do the same with the political hacks that are trying to make you angry. You can't win the game if you're victimized by other people, and you're being victimized by these people. Again, if you're, especially to the Gen Z and millennials, if you're young and you're starting out in this economy and you're starting out in this world and you're saying, I can't get ahead because of the millionaires and billionaires and oligarchs. What have they ever done to you? What's Elon Musk ever done to you? Well, he's cutting the government. Yeah, he's cutting the waste. Don't you want to do that? Don't you want to cut out fraud in government? That's what's going on. But what's he ever done? He's put lots of money into really miraculous things. Starlink, the ability to have satellite and internet coverage everywhere. He's done some really cool things. Well, okay, but we talked about it. I mean, Warren Buffett, he's done cool things in a different sense. But as you build your life, you are the driver. You're the person in control of your own life. good, bad, or indifferent. And when you recognize that and you realize that, that's when you become truly self-effectuated and you become self-aware. Life isn't easy, and I've made my mistakes. I've paid a huge price for the mistakes I've made. But I've also had great success, and I've had one because you can't have one without the other. Learn that, and learn that you're being victimized by the very people telling you you're the victim. Tell them to shut up. They're not in control of you. You are. Your ideas make you powerful. Your ideas make you the human that you are. I believe in you, and I believe in you for the next generations, and I believe in your abilities to fix the problems we have. Reject envy. Don't let them weaponize the distrust that you have. Stand for your own ideas. Critically think. Learn critical thinking skills. Learn AI. Learn it. Make it your friend. Let your ideas gain foothold in the next generation. But above all, believe in yourself and believe that you are a powerful person who can make a difference. Thanks for being with me on this episode of The Steve Beeman Show. I look forward to our future discussions and for conversations with you about all of these things that make so much difference for our future benefit. Thanks much.